Hi everyone, just want to share my PowerPoint. Really good to see some very familiar faces on the screen. Hi everyone, hope you're all doing well. Stephanie and I talked last year about the idea that it would be great to do a seminar which was equally interesting, or I suppose equally uninteresting, to science teachers and teachers in the humanities, the arts, and those who are interested in art as an art form, as a form of human expression, as a cultural form, and those who might be interested in looking closely at the world as a scientist might do. And I found it really fascinating to think through how, looking back into art history, there's a kind of intersection between methods of close looking for aesthetic purposes and methods of close looking for scientific purposes. And let's make sure, there we are. So here are two apparently very different images. In fact, they're both fine art images which are fascinated with the human body. And if you go deep down into the history of art, you find that, of course, the human body, at least in Western art traditions, is absolutely the central image. And Leonardo da Vinci in the Renaissance was attempting to understand the body simultaneously through scientific discourses and through aesthetic ones. In fact, he would probably have argued that, it's the perfect proportions of the body, mathematical proportions of the body, that make it beautiful and divine, as Leonardo might have said. Damien Hirst, who's exactly my contemporary, they used to call them young British artists, his movement, until they were no longer young, unfortunately. So they're now like pre-elderly British artists. But anyway, he thought he was a very sort of cool young man in 2000 when he made this sculpture in which essentially what he shows is a bronze, which would be the kind of typical heroic image of a warrior or a leader. And instead of showing the surface of the body, he strips it away to reveal, as it were, the organs working underneath. He calls it hymn to nature, I suppose. So artists throughout the whole of the last 500 years in the Western tradition have been preoccupied with the body, looking at it as a series of organs, but also thinking about creation and thinking about proportion, all of these issues. So it occurred to me that we could have a really interesting conversation between teachers in the sciences and teachers in the arts and humanities subjects, teachers of history, art teachers, who all are interested in looking at the natural world. And the great thing about the seminar, as I'm imagining it, is that nobody will know everything, least of all me. I called it art and biology because biology was the only science subject I got an A in when I was at high school. So, I mean, I wouldn't even want you to hear what I know about physics. But anyway, I'm not pretending that I am a scientist. The point is to get sciences and the arts and humanities into, and social sciences as well, into conversation. So the main sort of body of material that I wanted to think about comes from the 19th, 20th, 21st centuries. And as always with these wonderful summer seminars, the great joy of bringing teachers from all over the US to Yale is that we can look at works of art together in the Yale museums, look at original objects. And because all of the Yale collections are available as high quality JPEGs, you can just download them from the website and teach with them wherever you are. And so one of the themes I thought about was romanticism and nature, early 19th century, at the moment where poets and artists were fascinated with a kind of religious, spiritual, transcendental read on nature, like the famous Traveller Looking Over a Sea of Fog by Caspar David Friedrich. If any of you are near to New York City, this picture is on its way here right now. It's going to be shown in an exhibition at the Met Museum in the next couple of months, so look out for that. But of course, that was the same moment that biological sciences were taking their modern form in the hands of people like Alexander von Humboldt, who was collecting samples and also making a kind of study, not just of individual plants, but also of ecosystems. So our idea of ecology and of climate zones comes really from Alexander von Humboldt, his work, his book Cosmos, which contains these wonderful illustrations. So many of these books, science books, to this day, contain exquisitely beautiful illustrations, which we tend to look at only as, containing information, but they are actually worth looking at. as works of art as well. And that's what this artist, Frederick Church, did. We could maybe even go down to New York to see this picture, or certainly we can study a high quality image of it, Heart of the Andes. You'll see that it's basically a Humboldt study of different ecosystems from the snowy Ecuadorian Andes here right down to this tropical zone in the foreground. So all the different climate zones represented in art. So art and science speaking to each other. And in that same early 19th century period, the American painter Charles Willson Peale was also the creator of an amazing museum of natural history. He was interested in dinosaurs, he was interested in fossils, he was also interested in birds, such as the turkey, which seems to have just wandered into his studio here because it's an all-American turkey. They do that in my garden here in Guilford, Connecticut, too. Um, he was there. Peale was there when they it's a great title of a painting, Exhumation of the Mastodon, right? Digging up the bones of this great mammoth-like dinosaur, or this ancient creature, extinct creature, which was all about saying that, there's a natural history of the United States, which reaches deep, deep back into the past before this country was founded. And dinosaurs, I mean, who under the age of 100 doesn't find dinosaurs really, really cool? And of course, there are both actual fossils and replicas in the Yale Peabody Museum, which have been recently redisplayed very beautifully. One question we might think of is exactly how artists have been involved in bringing to life historic collections of dinosaur bones, but also, in fact, in interpreting natural history altogether. So we'll spend a lot of time, and I don't usually do this. Usually I'm a Yale Art Gallery guy, but this time it's going to be the Peabody Museum of Natural History, which is going to be our main focus, looking at these incredible wall decorations, or sort of the panoramic frescoes, really, and also the dioramas by this remarkable artist, James Perry Wilson. I think you can see, if you look closely, there's 3D in the foreground with real natural history sample objects, and then in the background it's painted. So I think you get the idea from this. We can look at James Audubon. I want to think especially about the dodo, the survival of some fragments of the body of the last dodo up at the top, and then, of course, taking on a fictional role in Lewis Carroll in Alice Through the Looking Glass. And we can think about the way that empire and art and science came together in things like the exploration of Australia. For example, the kangaroo. It's the first Western painting of a kangaroo, but unfortunately the kangaroo died. They had to take its skeleton out and reinflate its skin like a balloon, which is why it's a funny shape in this painting by George Stubbs. We can think about evolution and the importance of the visual image for theories of evolution and how that affected art. So this landscape painting shows us cliffs, which are very, very ancient, and thinking about the age of the earth as suddenly a matter of question. The artist actually read the book, The Origin of Species, while he was painting the picture, and suddenly understood the world a completely different way. I know I'm just about out of time, but I want to think about drawing. And I think one thing we might all try to do, it's humiliating to be so bad at it when Turner was so good at it, but to think about drawing from nature and how we understand the structures of living objects by drawing them and by sitting there carefully looking at them and trying to draw them. And I think the last sort of set of connections I'd want to explore is the way that industrial designers in the 19th century picked up on imagery from the natural world to make in factories these kinds of carpets and other. I'm sure your grandmother had a horrible carpet like this, mine did. And then a sort of revolutionary group in the late 19th century turned back to natural dyes and to natural substances, anti-industrial. This is William Morris designing anti-industrial but natural products for consumption. So, you can certainly see questions of illness, physical illness and sort of mental illness in works like Edvard Munch's The Scream. Everyone knows this picture, but did you know that there was, after this, in Germany, everyone turned away from the kind of neurasthenic body of neurosis and instead started running about stark naked and returning to nature. We may not want to use these slides in all classrooms in all school districts. So we'll think about sanatoriums and health and the body, and the way that the healthy body is represented as well. And the last move would be to think about the way that we imagine bodies in other worlds. So these are on the left 19th century and on the right 20th century visions of what the world might be like on another planet. Artists imagining through the study of scientific drawings, but imagining what a creature from another world might look like. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot from everyone in the room, and I'm looking forward to. Oop, light's gone out. Shut up, Barringer. It's time to shut up. Okay.